The Amtrak sleeper accommodations are among the best ways to cross the country and see America. Having your own private compartment for a 20 to 40 hour journey is truly unmatched. In today's video, we're once again riding Amtrak City of New Orleans, but for the first time, we're experiencing the Amtrak bedroom. Unfortunately, we're not taking the train on its entire 19-hour journey, only jumping on board for the final 2-hour stretch from Champaign-Urbana to Chicago. Despite the short distance, this will definitely be something different and an experience to remember. So with that said, let's head to the station and get this trip started. It's just before 6 a.m. and I'm here at Champaign's Illinois Terminal Station with about 15 minutes to spare before my train arrives. I cut it pretty close this morning, as initially I planned to take an Uber from my home to the station, but unsurprisingly there were none available this early in the morning. So I resorted to driving myself, which, yeah, I agree, would normally have been the easiest option, but it was actually a minor inconvenience as I wasn't taking the train back to Champaign. Thankfully, parking at the station is free on weekends, so I saved some money there. About 5 minutes after I reached the waiting area, passengers were called to line up on the boarding bridge outside. Now, because there aren't many sleeper passengers booked on the short journey to Chicago, there is no dedicated boarding lane. However, business class passengers on the other trains do receive priority boarding. The consist on today's train was reversed, as normally the sleeping cars are at the front of the train. However, today they were at the back, which is actually kind of nice for those traveling overnight, as you're less likely to be disturbed by the horn. Amtrak Superliner sleeping cars have one family bedroom and one accessible bedroom on the lower level, along with 4 of the smaller roomettes that I've covered before. There are 10 roomettes on the upper level, along with 5 standard bedrooms. The roomettes are all numbered while the bedrooms are lettered, and this morning I've been assigned room A, which has some slight disadvantages that I'll cover later. Breakfast was offered to sleeper passengers who boarded in Champaign. However, the menu didn't seem very appealing to me, plus there wasn't even a proper dining car on today's train like normal, so I ended up skipping it. And unlike the last 2 times when I took the roomette, I unfortunately never got to meet the sleeping car attendant on this trip, aside from boarding and deboarding, which was strange because they usually come by and introduce themselves to all new passengers. But either way, I was more in the mood for just getting settled into the room and relaxing for most of the journey. Alright everyone, welcome to the Amtrak Superliner bedroom here on the northbound train 58, City of New Orleans up to Chicago. First things first, quick disclaimer, if the filming gets a bit wonky at any point during this segment, like I've covered before, the track condition on this route is not very good, so you can see we will be rocking around quite a bit. Moving on from that, well, related to that, I guess, you will hear the bathroom door continuously hitting the wall because it's not, secure. These Superliner cars are around 30 to 40 years old, and they're in good shape. I mean, they have been refurbished recently. These are all new leather cushions, but some parts are still in rough shape. So the bathroom door here does not lock, it just keeps coming open like that, so you will hear it continuously hitting the wall like that, unfortunately. So we'll start off with the bathroom, I guess. The light switch is right here, and then you move in, you have your ensuite shower. Alright, controls are there, and then the toilet, of course your own towels, and then somebody left a towel on the floor, the previous passenger, I guess. That's fine. So one advantage of actually the Superliner bedroom is that you do get your own bathroom and shower. The roomette, for example, or in comparison, roomette passengers have to use communal bathrooms. They get, I think 1 or 2, 3 couple bathrooms, right? On the one bathroom on the top floor and a couple bathrooms on the bottom floor. And so all the roomette passengers have to share the toilets and the showers. So the bedroom advantage, each bedroom gets its own toilet and shower, so that's something to keep in mind. Moving on, you have your sink, you know, pretty basic sink, water, works as normal. You have your soap, some lotion here, power outlets, the switch for the mirror light switch, and then you have a towel here, hand towel. All right, moving on, you have, just looks like a regular seat. So that's right here in this little corner. I have my backpack there. I don't believe this one reclines. I don't think it, yeah, it doesn't look like it reclines. So just a regular seat there if you want to just sit there. And then above looks like some extra storage, or I don't know, might be, if the top bunk comes down, it could be some extra storage for that, but I can't really tell what that's for. You have some curtains on the windows, obviously. Complimentary bottle of water here. When I took the roomette last year, they gave us 2 bottles of water, so there's only one. Not that that matters or anything, but you have some literature, welcome aboard, piece of paper, menu. I just wanted to make this, you know, point this out. Amtrak food is not the most glamorous, and especially for breakfast, there's not much at all, really. It's just bagels, breakfast sandwiches, coffee cake, muffins, oatmeal. Don't expect too much, so I'm skipping breakfast today, like I already mentioned. Safety card. This is the pull-out table, which will come out and it would fold down like this. We have the main seat here, sitting area. Again, these are relatively new, updated leather cushions. I don't know if you preferred the old fabric more or this more, let me know. But there are control panels on each side for 2 different things, I believe, yeah. So this is the reading light. It's a touchpad, which is pretty cool. So you just touch it and it comes on and off. It's adjustable. We have the call button for the attendant if you need that. And then the ceiling light controls are right here. So you have the ceiling on switch for the light, off switch, and then also a night light switch. When it's nighttime and you want a little less intensity of light, you know, you'll hit that. You got 2 pillows here that were just waiting when I came in. And moving on to the other side, this looks like the temperature controls, right? Yeah, temperature controls here, and then another reading light there. Complimentary box of tissues, and then this is the closet where you can store your coat, like I have here, and then any extra luggage, you get 2 hangers. I don't know exactly how clean it would be in here, so do this at your own risk. If you have a nice coat, it might, maybe it'll get dirty. Hopefully it doesn't for me, but just to keep that in mind. All right, and when it comes to bed mode, okay, the main seating here, it does fold down. As you can see, the lever is right here. You pull that, it'll come down, both of them. You'll pull it and it'll just recline, I guess. The main, or not the main, but the top bunk, as you can see here, comes down with this lever. You'll just pull it and then it'll come down. This is where you have your main comforter. You have 2 more pillows, and then this is a strap for, I don't know where this would latch on exactly. I haven't paid attention to that, but this strap keeps you from rolling off, basically, onto the ground, from falling onto the ground. So that's what that is. And then you have a ladder here, which is pretty interesting. If you recall, on the roomettes, they have a little step right around here or somewhere, near the main seat, where you would step on it and then get up to the top bunk like that. But in the bedrooms, it appears each bedroom comes with a little ladder, so you can attach it to wherever, so you can easily get up to the top bunk. That's what I'm assuming. So that's pretty cool. There is some hair from whoever was here last. So, I mean, when you take Amtrak, don't expect perfect cleanliness, don't expect perfect condition. As you can see, the door doesn't close, but it is what it is. You have a little pouch here for personal belongings. I don't know if that's trash left over, if that's supposed to be there. I don't think that's supposed to be there, but I'm not going to pay too much attention to it. You have your upper reading light or ceiling reading light for whoever's sleeping here. They can turn that on and off. And that's about it for the top bunk. Okay, there we go. And yeah, that is about it. And I forgot to, oh, sorry. Dustbin, or the trash bin, is right here. And it has not been changed since the last passenger, but again, these things don't really bother me that much. So yeah, compared to the Roumette, obviously it's twice the size. It's about 7 feet by 6 or something feet, something like that. So definitely double the size, because the Roumette would be just this, with the door being right here. So you get all the more space. Obviously it's a lot more expensive. I'll cover the price and everything at the end, but pretty great. This is my first time ever doing the Amtrak bedroom. I've always done the Roumette in the past, so what a way to do it. I mean, obviously it's not a super long distance route. I'm only in here for 2.5 hours from Champaign to Chicago, but you know, first time for everything, right? So that's about it for the room tour. Thanks a lot. Let's keep the journey going. Okay, so forgive me everybody, I actually misspoke when talking about this chair here. It is not fixed in place. You can actually rotate it or swivel it. Not when you're sitting in it. Of course, there's no space for it to actually swivel when it's folded down. But if you need more space for the bed or whatever, you can fold this up. So, of course, the armrests come up like this, and then the cushion comes up like that. And then there's a lever down here that you have to press, and then it will rotate. So there you go, just push it in like that, and then there you go. Now it's locked in the folded position, and now you have a lot more space to move around, which is pretty cool. And there is also a reading light for that seat. It doesn't work in this room, unfortunately, but just thought I would show that because I did misspeak earlier in the video. So there you go, there's some leftover trash you can't really see, but not a big deal. Just thought I'd showcase that. So the main issue with Room A and also Roumettes 9 and 10 is that they are at the ends of each car, meaning if people are passing by going from car to car, you might be bothered by that noise. Thankfully, it wasn't a very noticeable issue today. Self-service coffee stations were available in each sleeper car, otherwise the majority of the food service was delegated to the lounge car next door. I made a quick visit to the lounge car to admire the scenery from the large windows, and this is definitely a must visit on any Amtrak long-distance journey if it's available. On approach into Chicago, the City of New Orleans, Saluki, and Illini trains all have to complete a lengthy switchback maneuver to access Union Station. This is because these trains travel on the former Illinois Central Main Line, and that's important to know because the IC Main Line never served Union Station, nor was it ever meant to serve Union Station. Back in Illinois Central's heyday, it used to have its own terminal called Chicago Central Station. But once passenger train services were consolidated under Amtrak in 1971, Amtrak decided to move all passenger trains out of Chicago to Union Station, including those it inherited from Illinois Central, such as the city of New Orleans. Central Station was demolished in 1974, and today it's where the Metra Electric 11th Street Museum Campus Station currently stands, which would be just up the tracks a couple blocks this way. So, because Central Station was demolished, there is no longer a direct connection on the former IC mainline to a Chicago terminal. This means that Chicago-bound Amtrak City of New Orleans, Saluki, and Illini trains have to first pass through the South Loop neighborhood before crossing the Metra Rock Island District tracks at 18th Street and then going through Chinatown. After Chinatown, the trains will switch onto tracks used by Metra's Southwest Service and Amtrak's Cardinal, Lakeshore Limited, Capital Limited, and various Michigan services. Once the trains switch onto these tracks, they're facing the opposite way, and so they must reverse into Union Station. This morning during our reverse move, we briefly paused on the bridge over the Chicago River to allow the southbound Saluki train 391 to pass by. Now, you'll notice that this train is reversing out of Union Station, and that's because all southbound trains using the IC mainline have to first reverse out of Union Station so that afterward they can directly proceed forward onto the connecting tracks to access the main line to Champaign, Carbondale, and further south. And yeah, the Saluki and Illini are regional trains that run between Chicago and Carbondale. Despite that, they've been using the long-distance Superliner cars for over 4 years now, and there's a really complicated reasoning behind this that I'm not going to mention today. I've mentioned it countless times before in previous videos. Alright everybody, so we are making our final reverse move, the approach into Union Station. So I just thought I'd go ahead and conclude the experience. Obviously it was a really quick trip in the Amtrak bedroom. Didn't get the full experience that you would expect on a long haul journey, obviously, because we were only here for 2 hours. But overall it was fun. It was a pretty cool way to spend the 2-hour trip. This cost $163 one way, which is a pretty fantastic deal considering, if you remember, a little over 2 years ago, I took the Amtrak Roumette, which is, again, half the size of this, from Chicago to Champaign, and that was $172 one way in 2022. And then last year when I took the Roumette again on this train, 58 up to Chicago, that was about $84, so it was half the price. On this trip, the Roumette was coming in at around $99, so for just about, $63, $64 more, get a room that's twice the size. Thought that was a no-brainer. So overall, it was a good experience. You can tell that these coaches are, showing their age. There's a lot of rattling for the faucet controls. And then, of course, the door, as I showed you, it's still propped open. It won't shut all the way. There is a noticeable lack of power outlets. In coach class, you're used to seeing it, on the side by the window. The only outlets are right here in the mirror. So again, take note of those things. Otherwise, it's a comfortable way to travel. I really enjoyed the experience today. And that's about it. So here we are pulling on to the platform at Union Station. It's 8:35, so we are a good 40 or so minutes ahead of schedule. So great on-time performance today. We were on time the whole way from Champaign to Chicago, and I think the train has been on time since it left New Orleans yesterday. So fantastic job, and here we are in Chicago. As we head into the concourse at Union Station, there's an unusual surprise on the back of our train that I wanted to show you. Yes, that's an Amtrak Horizon Fleet coach on the back of the city of New Orleans. These cars are normally used on regional trains out of Chicago, so what this thing was doing in New Orleans, I have no idea. I had about 2 hours before my commitments downtown, and the nice thing about Amtrak sleeper tickets is that even if you're an arriving passenger, you still get access to the Metropolitan Lounge. Now, the food selection is nothing more than a variety of snacks and drinks, but there is a large amount of seating and dedicated workstations, a great place to relax a bit whether you're starting or ending your trip. There's also an upper level that has even more seating and a smaller coffee station, so there's no shortage of choices on where you want to sit. But that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you all for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, take care, and I will see you again very soon.